How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Okay, the volume should be cool. So if anyone has any issues with the volume or anything, dodgy sounds, can't load, etc., just let me know in the chat and we'll see what we can do. So we've got around 20 questions. We've got Senshu chained to the chair. Let's go.
I don't see any. I look pretty free around here.
He lies. He lies. Yeah, so we'll start with what I've labelled as the priorities questions, which I guess could be seen as the questions that most people are asking at the moment. Um, and we'll start with the one from Burn Pyro, which is when will you finally update the balance of map layouts?
Actually, that's a very pertinent question because we're starting the process actually right now. Uh, I just started working with the council for kind of like the major issue maps and just gain their input on what they think, and also looking at what the general community thinks. This will be it will be it won't be a fast process, to say the least, because first of all there has to be a relative agreement on what needs to be done, and then actually implementing it takes time also.
Yeah, right. Okay, now do you plan to update every single map? Or I'm assuming it will be phased, obviously, but
Yeah, it'll be phased, and it'll be based on like the community feedback on how things work, because like how we have currently in the live rotation of ranked, we have both auxilium maps, and the
oh yeah,
original does a yeah, everybody seems to hate the original, so we need to
yeah,
pull that out of the rotation.
that needs to be
But
killed on fire.
yeah, the updated one, personally, I think is pretty good. The spacing is really spread out. It forces players to use a lot of the map, and if you have a really cluster focused deck, sometimes that could be an issue. But overall, things seem fairly well with the newer updated version.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a lot more balanced than most maps we have, and I think the only thing I would have preferred on that map is, from a personal point of view, if it was 6 spaces from the middle font. So the middle font rush is not quite as important early game. But other than that, it's quite a
Yeah.
balanced map, um, and it plays pretty well. I mean, I've not played on it too much myself, but it's Axe Razor. Put a t-shirt on a Gurgis. I think your mic's muted, Gurgis, by the way.
No need for words. I'm here.
Okay, so let's move on. That's a good answer. We've clarified that we're going to have some form of update for maps. That's awesome. So from
Uh,
Xcova, oh, go on.
Actually, Moles, in the in-game chat, it seems like some people are having problems with the stream.
The stream. What's that?
Yeah, that it's frozen.
Frozen. Okay.
Yeah,
It
actually, I'm
could.
having the same.
I think that's just for some players,
Okay.
I
because not
think it
everyone
may just
can.
be like
Oh,
their internet,
yeah,
perhaps. Let's
yeah,
ask in
okay,
the
yeah.
chat.
Now it's working.
Anybody having issues with video? I think it's possibly. Can you tell them to just refresh? And if that doesn't work, then they
Yeah,
have to watch it back on YouTube afterwards. Not everyone can
yeah.
run.
Just
Not everyone can run a high quality stream.
yeah. It yeah, sometimes I have problems with it cutting out and stuff. So,
Mm.
yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to the next one.
Okay, yeah. So Xcover wants to know, when are the balance patch that we were the balance patches that we were promised coming back?
Actually, I've talked to Gedden about it, and he wants to get to it within the next few weeks. So there should be hopefully a balance patch before too long. But uh, with the release of the game on Steam, we've been really busy with a bunch of different types of company-related initiatives that we've been working on.
Okay, so as you've mentioned, these company initiatives, can we get some more details on them?
I suppose. Yeah, we've been, as many of you probably have already known, we have had listings for programmers and artists and stuff. Uh, Part of the reason why we needed to get the game out on Steam was so we could actually move forward with actually bringing some of those people on. And because having more programmers on the team will allow us to make faster and hopefully more rounded changes to or improvements, bug fixes to the game. But as all of you can see, that things have kind of slowed down a little bit recently, and a lot of it just has to do with business and moving forward with all of that stuff.
Okay, well, whilst you sort of briefly went over it, we've got a question here from Ashalia, which was, has any progress been made on hiring the new programmers? Has the process actually started now?
Yeah, we can't get into too much detail about it because this is like pure business, and for many reasons we cannot talk about it in detail, but it is moving forward. We're reviewing candidates, and it's moving along, and hopefully before too long we'll have a new programmer. But
Cool, yeah.
it's not an exact time because like things cannot work out and stuff. There's a lot of variables involved, so it really is a wait and see type of situation.
No, that's good to hear, because like you say, once we've got these new programmers in, it will be obviously a lot easier to progress, all the things that need sorting, like the drums of war, the 2v2 ranks, all the things that we say, okay, we'd like to do that, but maybe they're not top priority. Eventually that they will finally be getting done, hopefully. That's cool. Which brings us on to, I'm not sure how you say this, but Colossal? Is that it? What is DOG's biggest priority right now for Pox?
Well, the biggest priority, probably short term, is bringing on the programmers, because as soon as we get more programmers, that lightens the load for Gedden, which right now, since he's basically the CEO and basically anything that happens to the game has to go through him because of how the game is designed. It's just like having only one front-end programmer is a major bottleneck at the moment. And once we have more front-end programmers, then that will help speed things up for against stuff into the game, which that is our top priority. Is we want to get things in faster and get more in faster.
That's good. So with regards to, obviously that's mighty important, but with regards to say features or bugs that you've got at the moment, what's number one priority on those fronts?
Oh, there's a few, as many of probably the new Steam players probably know. There is an issue with memory error, and
Hmm.
it's taken a while to narrow down the information enough for the programmers to actually have something to work with. But right now, it seems to be related to Intel integrated graphics and their drivers.
Okay.
And yeah, and it's just with Steam for some unknown reason, which we need to figure out why it's happening only on Steam. But yeah, it's one of those things that it's a priority for us, but it's a real slow process on finding out the why and how to best fix the problem.
Hmm. And is it still a case that people that are having any sort of out of memory issues, etc., need to create support tickets?
Uh, if they can create support tickets, for the most part, I do what I can to help them out with that, give them suggestions on what they can do. But for the time being, if you don't have another video card installed in your computer and you can't switch over to, your best bet is to download the standalone version for the time being. But we're working on trying to resolve that as soon as possible.
So it is a case of, in the meantime, going to the PoxNora.com and downloading the client from there.
Yeah, actually, I was actually some of the more recent customer service tickets regarding that issue. I've been trying out a new solution I've been looking into and seeing if that works for them. But actually, this is where it might help having more people coming back with or reporting the issue, because that's where I can give them the feedback, because I don't really want to officially post something until we know it's a viable option.
Yeah. Okay. I can't say this again. Why does everyone have such complicated names? Verum wants to know. So, would it be fair to say that cleaning up Steam problems is the biggest short-term bug/balance goal?
Yeah, that's probably the, well, it's kind of twofold, because Steam stuff we can only do it so fast, because some of the stuff it's stuff that just takes a while to really digest and narrow down why is it happening. So that's why Geddon is also planning on working on the balance patch in the relative future, because we don't want to hold everything up for these other things that it may take a while to narrow down the cause and fix it.
Okay, cool. Moss goes naked. Who made that account? Come on. That has got to be like Burn or something, surely. Hospi says get them clothes off. I'm not sure who he's speaking to, but probably a Gurgis. Okay, so first in a line of questions from H Fock, or Fock, I'm not sure how he says it, but he wants to know, when will we see a tokens pack cost reduction?
Yeah, that has been an issue that I've seen pop up on the forums a lot, and it's definitely on our radar. It's just a matter of priority on expending time, and also deciding on what course of action is actually needed. Because we could reduce the token packs, which is probably on the in the cards regardless. But it's also a question of, okay, why is this needed? And is it an issue that runes aren't earning enough experience per match to make it viable? And then what other options are there for us to for going forward? Because now that we have the reward system in game, we could potentially give out tokens as rewards for matches.
Yes.
So there's a lot of possibilities there. It's just right now it's the determining what would be best, because also this is a game of progression. So we don't, it's just like, as much as people hate this, we don't want to make it too easy to progress, because then it's like, well, I have everything, so what's the point? So there is some of that need for a gating factor, but it's putting the gate at the right place and to what extent. And that's what really takes the time in determining where is it needed.
Gagis, what's your opinion on tokens? Do you think they're correctly priced? Do you think they should be given as rewards? What do you think is the solution?
Tokens are... Everyone needs tokens to enjoy the game, that's my opinion. So they should be easily accessible.
Yeah, Verum wants to know, would the devs appreciate feedback on the CP issues, and do they need data on that?
I don't know at this point in time that's really needed, because like I said, it's on our radar, but it's not in the forefront of what we're doing. So it's one of those things that's just like, people could post about it, but it probably won't get any momentum at the moment until we're ready to actually start doing that.
Is that something that could potentially be implemented with the next balance patch?
That's probably unlikely. Well, let me say highly unlikely.
Okay.
I know many people would be disappointed with that, but right now, with juggling all the things that we are, just getting out the balance patch would be a feat on itself.
Yeah. Well, that's why we have the council to make things slightly easier in that regard, right? I know it obviously needs to be coded in, but at least they can give you the suggestions. Okay, so from Nightbane21, he wants to know, are there any plans to add a rune as a prize to PvP, or increase gold to encourage people to play in PvP?
Yeah, that's one of the real third rail kind of things with this with Pox, because players want more incentive to play PvP, but at the same time, we don't want that to be the only reason to play PvP, or we don't want that to be the driving factor for PvP. Because right now, technically, you have a better chance of earning more gold through PvP right now, because there aren't the same types of caps on what you earn as like single player. But with that said, the matches do run a lot longer than single player matches, so there may be some tweaking involved there. But yeah, it's possible to do rune rewards in PvP as an incentive, but I think we would be more likely to give like CP tokens rather than runes themselves, because as much as we want people to have incentives to play all the facets of the game, we also want to incentivize certain aspects a little bit more, because like training grounds, with the changes we've made to training grounds, they're being used a lot more. And with the upcoming training deck changes, or public deck changes, that may also help incentivize people using training grounds.
I mean, is that possibly a coincidence with the fact that we've got the influx of new players as well, though?
I definitely think that is a factor in this, but I've seen a lot of long-standing players in training matches too, because there is the gold reward with doing training matches, and you get the rune with training matches, which that gives a lot more incentive. And it's just like, okay, if we did the exact same thing for normal ranked PvP, yeah, it would incentivize people for doing that. But first of all, not everybody would necessarily want to do ranked PvP. And there's also the notion of we don't want to cannibalize like the incentive for going into training matches.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's arguments either way, to be honest. But
Yeah.
the way I see it, it's a really positive thing. And it's massively boosted the training matches, it's massively boosted the skirmish mode, and I think the campaigns have it too, right?
No, the campaigns are just you get the runes from doing the walkthrough process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, PvP at the moment has very few players actually playing it. And I do think it needs a boost. I mean, it's something that probably needs to be discussed more on the forums, see what everyone's view is on it, etc.
Yeah. In that regard, yeah, I've definitely seen that being a factor in our decisions going forward. But it's like, what are the other factors involved? Because like one of the things is the ranking system, it properly updating, because it's just like, is that factoring into people playing ranked matches and doing PvP?
I'm glad you acknowledged that, honestly. Really glad.
Yeah. Well, it's just like there's a lot of things involved, and it's like, okay, when we're able to get the ranking system updated to where we want it to be at, then will that influence the amount of people playing PvP matches? So there are a lot of factors involved, and we're definitely open to ideas. We partially also want to see where the cards fall on this.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, if it was exactly the same as Skirmish, where it dropped a core set rune for every game you played, even if it was made so it dropped a rare at maximum or something like that, I mean, anything, like, I don't really see the downside to it, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. And
but anyway, I guess I'll make a thread on that maybe later in the week or something and see what other people think about it. See if it's a view that's shared or not. Anyway, we should move on to the next question.
I just want to step in here. For the Drums of War, have you considered maybe adding an in-game visual for the top 5 contributors from every faction? Maybe give you incentive?
That hasn't been really discussed internally yet. It's definitely a possibility, but right now with Drums of War, it still hasn't even been reset from when we took the game over from SOE. So there's a lot of steps before we even get to that point.
All right.
This feed says, do you feel the forums are serving their true purpose?
Yes.
And Hospy says the forum's purpose is to listen to mine and Burns' words of wisdom.
Yeah, I would have to disagree with the second part, but yeah, the forums are definitely serving their purpose. It's with any type of medium like that, it's a fluidic kind of process. The tone of it will change over time depending on who's being active and stuff. And yeah, overall, I'm satisfied with the forums and the type of discussions we get on them. Yeah, there are some outliers in there that can be, let's, for lack of a better word, irritating. But overall, overall, I'm happy with it, and the rest of the team seems to be happy with it because there is that level of communication directly between us and the community, and we try to be fairly open about what's happening when we can. But at the same time, we also don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot, say something too early, and then have to back down from that standpoint, and then everything gets in an uproar about, oh, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so that's quickly, before we go back onto the subject to the community, which is our next section. Zesno wants to know, are legendary rooms going to be available from the Forge, and if so, when?
Okay. As our last QA went, Geddon has finally caved on that issue, and it is something that will happen. When still hasn't been decided yet. All of us would like it sooner rather than later, but it probably won't be until at least when we get another programmer in, so that we can divide up some of the duties. Because right now, Geddon's in overdrive with the current stuff. So to tack on the figuring out the pricing on top of that and implementing it, that is just like, whenever I bring that up to him, I can just hear him all the way across town just bursting into flames.
Hey, when's this going to get done, Senshu? Hey, say, Geddon, sorry. When's this going to get done? When's that going to get done? Forgeable legendaries should help boost rune circulation. Yeah, I think everyone's in agreement it should be a good thing. While we're on the subject of the Rune Forge, I was actually... I looked on PoxBox earlier for a Marsh Gargantua, which is not a top tier exotic by any means. It's a really old rune, actually. There's none in stock, and I went to the Rune Forge, and it really... I suppose took me back at just how many runes you have to sacrifice to make one rune back. Is the pricing of the Forge something that's under consideration, or is that something that you've not really got around to considering yet?
I've brought that up with Geddon several times. It's a discussion that needs to be broached at some point in time, but there's also other considerations now, because you can get runes a lot easier, like with playing training matches, playing skirmish matches. That's affecting the rate people get runes, and since there is no like chance to drop on the quality, you can get legendary quality runes and from the drops, and use those in Forge. So
I'm pretty sure that the only legendaries that actually drop from the core set are the diplomats. There may be a couple of others, but
yeah, there are some. There aren't a huge amount, and the core set also converts at a lower rate than the extended set in terms of shards. So, yeah, there are definitely things to consider in that regard. It's just, since we're not at the point of actually implementing it, like, everything right now would just be speculation, saying, yeah, that's a great idea, but we're not at that point yet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not ideal, because we would all probably like to just have that in and working. but there's just a lot of work involved in getting that working. Yeah. But yeah, I completely understand and hear where the community's coming at from the conversion rate of runes, and it really gets down to finding that butter zone of what is the highest but most acceptable rate that the conversion can be at. Because if we make it too easy, then we are a for-profit company, so we need some incentive for people to buy packs, but we also want to have enough of a incentive for people to actually spend money on the packs, them feeling like they get their money's worth out of it. So it's a real tricky process on getting that dynamic just right.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably something that could be addressed at the same time as the legendaries going into there, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. Just based on how things kind of work out, it could be that we do the legendaries first, see how that changes the dynamic, and then make our decisions from there. Because each every insignificant change that is made that isn't like a major change has an impact on how all the other systems work together. So even if we just altered the price on one quality of runes, that could have a drastic impact. So who knows? We may have a relatively speaking, lower conversion rate for legendary runes, but keep the current conversion rates. It all depends. Right now, it's just a guessing game as to what we will end up doing.
Okay, cool. Also, hey Kraska, I love you. Next question, and we've moved on to the community questions now, which are supposed to be focused about your role and all that sort of awesome stuff.
One thing I want to put to rest now is I don't know how many times people ask if I lift. The answer is no. I don't have time for it. Stop asking.
I think he was actually focusing that on a Gurgis, but...
Oh. Well, I get asked enough about it. That's just like, Okay,
Cosby says forward. We all got replaced for a Gurgis. Sad days. No, I'll speak to
Rocking
you, Cosby. You didn't. Okay, so from Colossal again, he wants to know, how often do the devs/team read the forums?
Well, everybody reads the forum. I would say Geddon and Zuo read the forums the most in terms of the core development team. But because their focus is on art or programming and getting new features, and it's like trying to find what you find or what we find as useful on the forums can take a long time, and time is a very, very scarce commodity at the moment. But they do check on the forums at the very least once a week. But a lot of times I'll also ping them and say, hey, you guys should probably take a look at this if there's something that stands out. But there's also people who create threads that have already been addressed. So it's kind of, okay, retreading the same ground and it would just be the same answer. Or it's just like, okay, yeah, we already have this on our radar. There's not much more we could say or do at the moment until we actually address it.
Okay. Well, yeah, honestly, I wasn't expecting to hear that Gen and that even looked at the forums, to be honest, unless you pinged them something. So that's pretty cool to hear that they do actually look. Um, I think it's quite good if you occasionally ping them a hot topic.
Yeah, and that's part of what my job is. If I see something that it's a new issue or something that's really relevant to what we're working on right now, then I'll point out to them and say, hey, you guys need to take a look at this. Or sometimes I'll just take the core of what is the point of this thread and summarize it down for them, because sometimes the threads can get excessively long with when the fundamentals of it could be summed up in a sentence or two.
Yeah. Okay.
I just got a
go on.
I just got a question from the client. So YKMM asked about, do you have any plans for guilds in the future, like improving them, integrating them into the client, so on?
Yeah, the guild system, that's, I know I'm repeating myself again, but that is on our radar too. But it's, unfortunately, it's just not as high a priority as a lot of other features in the game. Like, personally, I would love to see more guild integration, have it integrated like a real coherent integration with the in-game chat, so it's all kind of one user interface in game. But that takes a lot of work, and it, like, right now it's a cost benefit analysis. Is the amount of time and energy needed to do something, are we going to get enough of a return in terms of player happiness and player retention versus getting out another balance patch? So it's something we want to address, but it's a matter of manpower and time.
And one more thing. You guys seem not to patch the game very often anymore, and that's understandable because you're busy with Steam and whatever. But is it that hard to like change the stats? Does it take a long time and effort?
Some of this gets into kind of the internals of, some of the stat stuff can be changed relatively easily, but we also want to give enough time in between patches to see how things fall, because initially when a patch comes out and things change, there will be, like, for weeks there will be like knee-jerk reactions, and then it'll be like, okay, what, like, weeks later or a month, then you'll see, okay, this is where the core problem is, versus the kind of like knee-jerk reaction of, oh, this is broken now, or this is OP. So some of it is the methodology that we're using right now of taking a cautious approach. Some of it is what is actually, like, how things are implemented in terms of, because technically I could go in and make changes, but there are like, in terms of updating databases and stuff, there are some processes that take time to set in motion. And especially with our development server, if we have something in progress or being worked on our development server, we cannot push a patch, because then we'll basically push something that isn't finished into a game too. So if it was where we had like several development servers, it would be possible to do faster patches. But also with doing faster patches, maybe it would result in more imbalance or more issues, because it would be more reactionary rather than addressing the core of what is an issue.
Okay. And now for a very hurtful comment from Hfock or HFock. It's uncommon to see you on the PoxNora PoxNora client or reply much in this forum. Could you tell us more about your role and job?
Well, okay. Well, now with Steam, what I do has also expanded because the other team members have less time to do certain things. So basically, right now, I handle all the forum and social media, all customer service, and all quality assurance and testing. So basically, I'm doing the job of at least 3 people. So it's with that, like, especially on the forums, I don't have as much time to like peruse the forums, and that's actually part of the reason why we've started moving into bringing in some community moderators is because there just isn't enough time in the day or manpower to actually do it with our current team. And because honestly, I would love if we could bring in another person that basically kind of does my role to help spread out the load. But right now we're managing, and it's if we did that, then we wouldn't have the money to bring in a programmer. Yeah, so it is it's all about priorities and what is the highest priority. And and I'll still pop into like actual threads, posts, but like I'll read posts, but it's just like sometimes I just won't answer or post in them because it's like I have nothing to really add, and at the same time it would be the same like non-answer that has happened in the past of, hey, that's interesting. We're not working on this at the moment. But yeah, it's just like I keep tabs on stuff, and like I have 20-page document of stuff that has been brought up on the forums, and like that has links to forum threads. That is just like it just keeps on growing and growing with, hey, this is a good idea. This is good topic, but it's just like we're not addressing that yet. So it just the list just gets longer and longer, and it's just like, and like a lot of times it's like, man, I wish we could just address some of this stuff. I just wish so much, but it's just like we need another programmer. We need more programmers. It's just it's just. With the team size, there are just a lot of constraints that limit what all of us can do. And like being in game, I try to be in game at least an hour 4 times a week at the very minimum. But it's just like with doing the testing, with doing customer service, with doing just the normal forum stuff, handling like when people report forum posts as being offensive or being of an issue and stuff, that it really sucks a lot of the time out of the day. And and then doing some of the other features takes time too, because the recent polls for updating the public decks, that took days to get through the whole well, it took weeks in total, but in terms of me working with the council to get those decks together, yeah, it was days. That is just like I could have spent it in game doing stuff, but we all felt updating the public decks was a higher priority than me just playing the game, or me being in the game, or me just saying, "Hey, good post." So, yeah, it really is a balancing act of what is a
I
higher
think
priority.
people also don't always see some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, such as
Yeah.
I know, so like when I set up at tournaments, things like that, I'll be messaging you in the background, asking you to do this, that, and the other, you know. And
Yeah.
pretty much always I get a pretty prompt response, and you give out the player awards, set up some prizes, etc., etc. You know, it's a lot of things like that that you do that do take up a lot of your time.
Yeah.
They
And
don't
that's
really
where
get seen.
yeah, and that's where like I'll do social media posts, and like even on simple ones like Zero has been really prevalent on the forums with his videos, and they're of good quality and have educational value. So it's like I've been posting them on the social media channels, and it takes anywhere from a half an hour to an hour just to get it up on all the channels. So just doing like one post across all channels can take an hour out of the day. So, and yeah, so it's not ideal, and like a lot larger companies, they'll have a community manager that just handles Twitter or just handles social media. So it's just based on circumstance, and we're doing what we can with what we have.
Senshu, how would
Yep.
you compare your enthusiasm when you first started this to now?
What, first started with Desert Owl or first started with Pox?
Around the time of the revamp, let's say, before people started
Okay.
complaining.
My enthusiasm, it stayed pretty level. It hasn't changed really at all. Of course, there are the up days and there are the down days, but overall, things are pretty good in terms of that regard. I haven't really lost any steam yet. No pun intended.
Is Gedden feeling the same way, or is he suffering from all the hate, I guess?
Generally, part of my job is to shelter the team from a lot of the hate and just keep the constructive criticism going their way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I can't speak personally to him, but it doesn't. He seems to be doing well himself. It's just like nothing. Like the short-term gripes about, oh, this is broken, or this needs to be fixed, or why don't you do this? That doesn't seem to get him or the rest of that team down, because we're focused on the long term of Pox, not the short term. Because like short term, we could just pump out a bunch of expansions, but that isn't long term viable, because first of all, we would probably burn out really fast doing that, but there are bigger issues at play that need to be addressed first.
Okay. So Fock wants to know how's the progression for single player. Oh, how's the progression for single player server so far? I think he means there was a few issues where the single player server was going down.
Yeah, that is a real tricky it's not really subject. It's a technical issue at the moment. Our back-end engineer, Cortesys, is working and looking into it, but it's it's proving difficult because, like, all of a sudden the bot server will go down, and it's just like, okay, why is it going down? And none of our tracking software is being flagged as, hey, this went down and this is why. So it's gotten to a point where it's just like, okay, we need to go through the code line by line and figure out, okay, where is the potential problem coming from? Which that is a very slow and agonizing process.
Mm-hmm.
And and because the problem could be coming from anywhere. It could be somewhere in the actual game code, not the server code, that is interacting with the server that's causing stuff to go down. It's difficult to tell until we actually find why it's happening, and it's also, there's a ton of legacy code in the game that we're also working on clearing out, because this is like, over the years, Pox has changed a lot, and a lot of that code from the early days or from old initiatives is still in the game, or there's still hooks for it still in the game. So it's tracking down, okay, where is some of this old stuff still tying into, and how do we like cut it out if needed or repair it? Because another problem with doing that type of cleanup work is changing that could break other things. So it's a real sensitive type of issue that needs to be addressed, because as a lot of you have known, like sometimes we'll push out a balance patch to fix something and something else will break, and it's just like, we didn't even touch any of that, and something else will break, and it's just like, okay, why is it broken now? And then it's finding out, okay, this thing had a tie-in to this ability which has no reason being there, but there's this stupid tie-in. So it's just like there's just so much legacy code in the game, and it just takes time to clear all that up. And that's where a lot of the server stuff comes from, is determining why is it happening and how to best address it. And Cortices has put out several like fixes for this issue. It's just that none of them have like eliminated the issue. It just narrows it a bit by bit by bit, and it's just a long and very unglorious process.
Okay. Well, by the way, Kreska asked about the long-term expansion schedule. I'm pretty sure Geddon already said it was going to be in the long-term future, around every 3 to 6 months for an expansion. Is that the plan, or?
Yeah, that's still the plan. It's just right now it's getting the game into a state where we can get our production into that state. And once again, bringing on more people to the team will
So
drastically
Soulmilk
help
wants to
that.
know, can we have a Geddon versus Senshu match in-game?
Oh, it's definitely a possibility. It's just probably not going to happen anytime soon, because as difficult as it is for me to find time to spend in game, it's 10 times harder for Geddon. But it's definitely a possibility when things settle down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
My money's on
We'll make
Senshu.
sure to stream that as well.
Nah, my money will be on Geddon regardless, because
I've seen your BGs.
yeah, well, it's just like I'll make too many dumb mistakes. That's where I think Geddon has the upper hand with that, because it's like I'll overlook like a certain ability on one of the champions, and it's like, oh, what? Why did this happen? It's just like, oh, nuts.
Yeah. Pox is a difficult game to learn, and Geddon, although some people have critiqued his
Knowledge
of Pox, let's not forget he did create the game, and he's still going to know it a lot better than a lot of other new players, you know. Anyway, Exiled Tyrant wants to know: are there any plans to set up interviews to promote the game on other websites after the Ronin release?
I can say that there are plans. I can't say when, just because it's too far out there. What like the interview type stuff that gets set up just like within weeks. It isn't a long drug out process. We've had YouTubers contact us, and we've are working with them for their streams, and we are planning on contacting press about things, but it really is a slow burn. I know I've said this on the forums and in game before, but it's just like we don't want to blow the load too early, because it's just like if something comes up as needing to be done, then it could we would end up shooting ourselves in the foot.
Blowing loads early, yeah. We don't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I did intend to have the double entendre. But with that said, it's just we are looking into a lot more options now. Now that we're on Steam, there are a lot more possibilities for us. So we're like considering conventions. It's just a lot of this stuff. It takes a lot of time, planning, and it also takes money. And it's just like, how do we bet? It really does come down to the biggest bang for the buck. Where do we get the most benefit for as little cash as possible?
Okay. So from Rockashin, do you guys still look at the bug reports forum? Apparently there's an issue for 3 months going on and hasn't had a response.
Yeah, the bug reports forum. That is the bane of my existence. Because unfortunately, right now, I can only really focus on narrowing down the biggest, most impeding bugs, which that would be the memory error and some of the other issues that have come up with the game. So it makes I want to address more of the bugs, but it's just like there's just so many, and it's just like it's just a lot of them are legacy stuff that even that have been around for years and still haven't been addressed, and we want to address them. And this is one of the reasons why we want to get more programmers in, because there are actually I'll see bugs pop up on the bug forum, and it's just like, yeah, that's already on our list.
Yeah.
And it's just like we just haven't gotten to them, because this the actual numbers may not be correct, but I'll just say that it's just for every 10 bugs that are reported, I can maybe confirm 2 of them, and then based on every 10 I end up confirming, Geddon can only handle addressing about 2 of them. So it's just a whole scale issue of when we're able to get more into fixing the bugs with more programmers, then there will be more of a reason for me to focus on fixing the bugs. But it's just it's also the juggling issue of, okay, I have the forums, I have the game, and I have the customer support. So it's just one of those has to go in terms of dealing with this other stuff. So getting back to the earlier question, my time in game may suffer when we start getting to a point of addressing issues.
Okay, my brother has just appeared, who is the person that's been trolling in the Twitch chat, for anyone that's wondering.
Hello.
Burns had a question about the bugs. Burns listening to the stream downstairs, and he said, "Well, if they know about the bugs, why don't they fucking fix them?" That's Burns words.
Can we skip that question?
All right.
Well,
yeah, look, keep back off because we're a bit busy right now.
Well, okay, I'll answer that. It's the bugs. Addressing the bugs. There is a time scale involved with addressing them. For someone to report them, or for it to happen, it may take, let's say, 20 minutes from when it happened to when they report it. It could take me upwards of 2 hours, depending on what it is, maybe even longer, to confirm what is happening. It can take Geddon 3 times that long to actually work in a fix for it.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets down to, okay, does Geddon want to spend 6 hours fixing a bug regarding a ability, or does he want to fix a bug that relates to people actually being able to get into the game?
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
I mean, I used to create browser games, and I kind of did it as a hobby. I ran a couple of small browser games, and when a bug comes up, the first thing you have to do is try and recreate the bug. Once you've then found out what the bug is, you've got to try and find a fix, which, depending on what the bug is, can be very problematic. Generally, people that ask questions like that probably haven't done any form of coding themselves and don't really understand, how much of a problem it can actually be to fix them.
Yeah, and like I said, then it also gets into the other issue of you fix one bug and then it creates another bug because there's some tie-in somewhere. So
Especially on a game as large as
balloons
Pox,
out. Yeah, because there's so many interdependencies in this game that there's a huge cascading effect with fixing anything in the game.
Can't. Right, we've got a couple of good questions here, and they're more about future things on Pox. Things perhaps we'd like to implement in the future, etc. And I like this question a lot. Zesno wants to know, are there any plans to make shards purchasable, either with gold or AL points?
There aren't any plans at the moment. Or none that I've heard, which most likely means that it hasn't been discussed yet.
Yeah.
It's just the shard. We don't want to muddy the system anymore, or further in terms of we don't want to have a ton of different currencies, and it's just like, okay, where do I use this currency? Why is it only applicable here? That kind of situation. So we want to keep it as directly related as possible, because when I first started playing Pox before we even got the game, it was I tried learning the currency system, and it's like, okay, what are these tokens? How do you use them? Are they actually currency, or where do you use them? And it's like there are a lot of these things for experienced players. It's like, well, no duh, but for new players, it can be really confusing and daunting. So with shard system, having that only in the Forge makes it a lot more
appealing to newer players to want to play and keep playing. Because I didn't like it.
Can you hear Frenchie speaking? I'm not sure if you can pick up his voice or not there. Is that why he stopped?
Yeah, I heard you guys.
Yeah, well, okay. Look, Frenchie doesn't actively play Pox, but he has played Pox once or twice before, and it wasn't exactly his thing. He said, "What are you gonna? What is Pox gonna do to make the game more appealing to new players like him that may not instantly take to it?"
Yeah, that's it's a good question, and there's no easy answer to it. It's just going to be an ongoing process of making tweaks to the game and how things are displayed and how things interact with each other. Because we've heard from a lot of players that are just returning that they love the new setup of the game. They love how the new progression works. There are the people that say, hey, I don't want to be part of the progression. How do I skip it? And there's no place that tells them, hey, just go into options menu. So yeah, it it just it just takes time and coming up with new ways to improve it. But there's also the other factor that you can't appease everyone.
Yeah, sure.
The game is kind of what it is, and to go to a broader audience, then the game will lose part of what makes Pox Pox. So it is a balancing effort of, okay, how do we make the game more accessible, more inviting, but still keep the game as what people want it to be or expect it to be in terms of their experience.
Okay, so let me ask you this: if there was one thing that you could do, if time etc. was no object and you could just boom put it in the game, if there's one thing that you could do to make the game more appealing to players, what would it be? And it's got to be kind of realistic.
Add explosion animations when the champion dies.
Oh God, that's a tricky one because it's like I've thought of things over time, but it's just like yeah, huh?
You can give us a couple of things if you prefer.
Well, yeah, it's just for what's coming to mind. It's just like nothing's. Honestly, what comes to mind for me personally would be like basically getting the ranking and guild interface into the actual game. That I think would help with some of the confusion and getting people to interact more with each other.
Yeah.
But it's just in terms of making the game more. It's really like maybe having a more dynamic like single player system with more like unexpected events happening, adding more of a random element to it, because a lot of the new players just they start out in single player because first of all they'll just get slaughtered in standard multiplayer, but they're learning the game and are getting acquainted with the lore of the game. Actually that brings up another thing is integrating the lore more with the game and making it more transparent rather than just a kind of a text file on the website of, okay, this is what this expansion is about, then play this mission. But yeah, all that, it takes a lot of development time. So it's just like, yeah, I'll come up with random ideas. Hey, this would be nice. Or I'll see something in the forums of, hey, this would definitely help improve the game. But it's a matter of time and what can get in the game. So it's just like, as soon as it's like, I'm like, okay, what's the cost benefit analysis of it? Okay, forget about it. Because this is like, just thinking about it, you can probably come up with 20 new ideas for the game and in under an hour. Getting them into a game is completely different. So, and if it's a real good idea, it'll stick with you over time.
Yeah. Someone asked me what I think would make the game more appealing.
Yes, Moles. What do you think would make the game better?
More boobs.
Well, no, I personally think, and I've said this for a long time, the the complete map review and a new ranking system would be my top two things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the game would be a hell of a lot more enjoyable, addictive, and playable than in PvP. That said, I am a PvP focused player, and obviously I don't really play any single player other than the dailies, pretty much.
Yeah.
So not all players will obviously follow the same thing for me, but for me to make the game more playable from a PvP view would be the ranking system and whatever I just said then, I've forgotten. The ranking system and...
Yeah, no, I've already forgot.
You're chatting shit, this tosser.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, well... Yeah, well, yeah, that's
While
the
we're
same
on the
issue I
subject,
run
why don't you
into.
tell us what you think would make it more appealing to Gurgis?
More boobs, more explosions.
And
Well-
I'm pretty sure that Chang Ching Chong Facus is probably Burn Pyro in the chat.
Yeah, that sounds pretty trolly of a name.
Yeah.
Press ban.
Maps, he says. Okay, cool. We have an answer. Okay, so Zesno also asked, are there any plans to make some kind of pack that is faction specific? I'm not sure if you're aware, but back in the Octopi days on Pox, you could actually buy 100 rune packs that were all from either Protectorate or all from Wrath.
Well, that isn't really faction, because there are 8 factions. That's more of the alignment. But yeah, I'm definitely aware of that, and we had that, like from previous QAs, that has been something that has come up before, and it's a possibility. It's just determining the need at the moment because of how we have the rune rewards set up in game now. That does change the dynamic of, is that really needed? Because the runes you earn in game are based on the faction you're playing, so you can control what you're getting to even.
Really? Is that the case? I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, if you're playing a Sunderland's deck, you'll earn Sunderland's runes.
Oh, okay. No, I was completely unaware of that. That's pretty good, actually. David, fuck off. Yeah, basically, he was on Skype with Burn Pyro downstairs, and Burns sent him up here to disrupt the Q&A. Okay. Who was it? Someone said... IP ban that troll would do wonder for the forum. No comment.
Well, actually, that does relate to community stuff, so I'll just touch on that. We don't want to be as heavy-handed with the community as a lot of other studios. And in some ways, that could lead to a little bit more rowdy forum experience or game experience. But there are ways for individuals to address that. And the extreme cases we do address, because I have taken several people aside and said, hey, this is not okay. Stop it or else. And because I do have the tools, and I have revoked people's trading privileges. Actually, I've found that to be a real good incentive for people to shape up. As soon as you revoke their trading privileges, they're like, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, yeah, our goal is not to... Our goal is more of reform rather than just exclusion.
Mm-hmm. It's like how a prison wants to rehabilitate people rather than punishing them, right?
Depends on what country you're in.
Well, yeah, I guess. Me being from Great Britain, yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry. Did we actually get an answer on the faction packs?
It like I it was kind of a non-answer. It was basically we have considered it. It's been brought up. It's just right now it's not, for lack of a better word, in the cards at the moment, just because things have become a lot more accessible with the rune rewards, and because you can actually control the faction you're getting based on what deck you're playing.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think that's a good answer, because I'm not sure how many people were even aware that you actually drop the runes of the same faction. I know I certainly didn't know that. So,
have you considered making like more expensive packs to maybe for people who want to collect all the runes in one faction? Maybe you don't want to put Doombringers and Harbringers in there, you know, but maybe a lot of the core runes and so forth.
So just like a pack that has all the runes in them, but not like the limited edition runes, but have an expensive price.
Exactly. So basically, they wouldn't keep buying boxes. They just spend like all at once to get their collection, basically.
Yeah. For free-to-play business models, that is always the worst thing to do a lot of times, because it's just like if people have the it's like the MMOs that had the early, like you pay like $100 and you have unlimited subscription. They're not gaining revenue from those players after they spend that initial $100.
mm-hmm.
And you need to have consistent revenue to keep funding and running the game, because just to even keep the servers up and running, that costs a monthly amount. Everything kind of costs money, so it's just like it would be great to do something like that. And if PoxNora was a completely standalone game, that would be a possibility. But it basically doing something like that would mean the death of PoxNora. But it's just like, it's unfortunate to say that, but it's kind of the truth of the matter is doing something like that would just literally kill the game in the long term.
I don't think Agogus was actually referring to like every single rune, where you like maybe like back in the day on Pox. I'm not sure if you're aware, but he used to sell like 10 rune packs, 20 rune packs, 50 rune packs, 100 rune packs. Was he referring to something like that, or?
No, my understanding was talking
mean,
about just buying all the runes.
Okay, maybe my suggestion was a little extreme. Maybe let's say all the uncommons, commons, rares. Like, they're gonna get these from PoxBox easily anyway, but you could just save them the trip and gain some money while you're at it.
Yeah, and that's where we want to like beef up the Rune Forge, and why we want to make the legendaries forgeable, and look at maybe adjusting some of the prices. We want to get the dynamic right with that. So it's it becomes a time versus money balance of, if you don't have the time but you have the money, then you can compensate. If you have more time than money, then you could be at the same level as everybody else. But it's not where it's to the extreme of pay to win. And that's where it's a real subtle and tricky dynamic of getting that just right, of where everybody has everybody feels like they have a chance at everything that is needed for them to be successful. and not gating too much. But that's where we have talked internally about, okay, what are other things? What, like, flares or things that could be added to a game that would be like maybe paid exclusive. There are always like those types of, okay, what about these? Would this better serve and allow us to open up more stuff for the non-paying players or the players who don't have a lot of money? But like I said, all that stuff takes time to really work out a system that works best. And even when any company does something like that, sometimes the first iteration isn't the best. It takes time and a lot of adjusting to what is actually needed.
All right, cool.
All right, so here's a really good current question, because I know you opened up a poll on the public decks this week. I didn't troll the forums for 1 week, and I'm still not a mod. Well done on your improvement in behaviour, Hospi. Sorry, yeah. So yeah, we've got a question about public decks from Says No. Are split faction public decks a consideration for the future?
Okay, from my point of view, it's unlikely. And speaking from Geddon's point of view, no. The public decks are supposed to be introductory for new players and show the dynamic of the game as a whole. And the mixed decks start really muddying that and potentially make it more confusing. There are some things like Tordons that are like a split faction rune that we haven't had public decks of, that if they were that could maybe be considered. But like in terms of like 15-15 split of public decks between factions, it's fairly unlikely. And it's also due to like trying to balance the decks, because we want the decks all to be of relativistic power. So it isn't about, okay, you only use this deck in training matches because it's the one that will get you to win. We want it to be where this is like, okay, when everything is in the ideal state, this is what the game is like.
Yeah, so a public deck's just something that you're looking to update fairly regularly then in the future.
It's something like fairly regularly. That can have its own interpretation from person to person, but we are looking at updating them when it's needed as balance changes come, because the dynamic of the deck will change as we make changes to the runes. So yeah, we have plans on updating the decks when they're needed, and hopefully a little bit more regularly. But the process, like updating the decks to where they're all relatively comparable, is a very time-consuming process. And but that's also part of the reason why we did it the way that we did this time. We had the council work together on coming up with a list of decks, and then having the players vote on which decks they would like to see in game, or think that would be best for new players. Because with training matches, we want like longtime players to also play training matches. So we want it to be interesting for them too, because if they're playing, they're engaging new players. They may be able to help the new players. And if the deck powers are of relative strength, then the hope is new players, even if they lose, they'll have a better understanding of that it's the tactics involved and not just the or the composition of what's actually in the deck. But it's as much of a guessing game as like actual science, because everything is in flux, and there's no way to really account for, okay, a person's skill who's new versus an experienced player or a relatively new player, because a brand new player may just decimate a relatively new player, even though the relatively new player has more experience. But it depends on their, not just their knowledge of the game, but how they perceive that information from playing.
Yeah, one thing I want to highlight actually, when we made the Steam relaunch happen, I made the Guild Pox Academy, and tried to basically gather as many of the new players as possible into one place. Gathered a few experienced players that really want to help the community grow. Players like Agurgis, players like Anima, and a few others also in there. And what surprised me, and maybe a few of the others, is just how much some of these new players actually really like Pox the way it is right now. A lot of people think, oh, there's this, that, the other wrong with Pox. And obviously, the longer you've played Pox, the more you obviously notice these issues, etc. However, sorry, let me just burn.
I think that's mostly because new players don't really feel balance issues. It's not really an issue for them.
Yeah.
Because older players will.
Yeah, because with new players, there isn't the issue per se of what are the meta builds. So it's just about, okay, these are the runes that I have. How do I best use them? Rather than, okay, how do I just build the best deck? So, yeah, because like when I was first playing, it's just like, hey, this game is great. I get murdered when I do multiplayer, but single player, yeah, it's just like, there are a lot of fun dynamics of the game. But it's just like, it's just like with any game, the more you play it, the more experienced you are, the more you know about the game, the easier it is to, first of all, find potential problems, but also you start actually getting, relatively speaking, bored. It's just like you want something new, you want something different. So it's just like, that's where that's where like a lot of the returning players, we've had a lot of good feedback from them saying, hey, they like all the changes that have been made to the game. It's really refreshing. It's just because we've gotten a lot of players from before Pox was even with SOE. So it's just.
Yeah, I want to kind of, just while we've got the chance, just remind people where we came from, actually. Because a lot of people have very short memories, I guess. There used to be no such thing as the Rune Forge. There used to be almost no gold generation. It used to take forever to build up your gold. And we used to have these legendaries that were like completely like so hard
overpowered
to obtain before all of the legendary re-releases and the 5% chances on legendaries in packs. So we've got to remember, Pox has taken several steps in the right direction, Obviously, there is still a distance to go, and we've only got a small team working on it. But at least we have a team working on it that's actually taking Pox in the right direction, and potentially, in 6 months' time, we could be sat here after a few great balance patches. We could be sat here after Ronin launching. We could have some advertising going, a few new developers. Pox in 6 months' time could look a lot rosier. We just need to give it the chance.
Yeah, and also, even when things look even rosier, probably the same people that are taking issue with the game will still take issue with the game because they'll find something else. Because I've been on both sides of the community, and it's like I know that it's like playing a game for a long time. It's like, okay, why haven't you done this? I want this. This is what I expect from the game. And if the game doesn't live up to the individual's perspective of what they think the game is, then they're dissatisfied. And it isn't possible to please everyone with what they think the game should be.
Yeah.
So it is kind of well, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Okay, I want to ask this next question because it's something we've covered, I think, in every single Q&A that we've had with you and with Geddon. I think last time we spoke about it, we had a response that I'll go over in a minute. Hafok wants to know, a lot of discussion has happened around increasing the turn timer. Was this forgotten again? And before you answer, what I wanted to add to the question is, although we've discussed this before, and I think Geddon agreed in principle, but wanted to crunch some numbers, wanted to think, is just flat out increasing the timer the best way, or should he add a time bank, etc.? Now that we've got this influx of newer players, should the issue of increasing the timer be moved up the priority list as well?
Yeah, the game timer. Yeah.
I think I just want to jump in here.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I don't think the game timer should be changed. It's like one of the skills of the game that you have to learn. You have to learn to play with the clock. It adds more to the game when you're talking about skill.
Yeah, I can see both arguments of that because I know, like, playing like tree decks, I know that it can be where you have so many trees out that you run out of time, but also that's kind of a balancing factor of running a tree deck because you can produce so many trees. But yeah, the timer, especially for new players when they're learning and like in training matches and stuff, that is, yeah, it's on our radar. It just, we haven't really discussed it recently because in terms of issue priority, it's like, relatively speaking, it's a relatively easy fix, but it's just like deciding on what it should be and altering it.
Yep.
It takes a lot of time because it's just like you don't want to make it where it's the turns are too long and then people just don't hit in turn and you're just waiting for, you spend what, like, let's say a match lasts a half an hour, you spend 15 minutes of it just sitting there twiddling your thumbs because no one's hitting in turn.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a real balancing dynamic there that a lot of thought needs to go into, and it's just like for single player isn't really an issue because you have 8 minutes that generally gets you the time you need. It's just, it really comes into play with PvP, and it may be likely for, like, in terms of the likelihood, it may be higher likely to happen with the training matches and 2v2 matches than the ranked PvP queue, just because we want to keep like ranked PvP as kind of like that speed chess of, okay, these are the limitations, work your way up. But there's the create a game where you can extend the times. You can have longer match times if you need it, if you're learning and stuff. It's just this real dynamic of determining how much is the need actually there for decks, and then if the need's there, how much do you need to adjust it? Because it's just like just adding 5 seconds can make a huge difference. So it's just it really gets down into that nitty gritty, because we don't want to completely screw up the ranked PvP, because everybody's spending half the match just waiting for someone's turn to end. And also that also plays into how people are building their decks, because major swarm decks may be more prevalent if there's longer turn times, because then you would have a lot more time to micromanage each individual champion.
Yeah, I think this is why Geddon originally said he wanted to crunch the numbers, because there is a lot of different options, and flat out increasing the timer may not be the best one, you know. Some people in my guild even suggested that your timer should depend on the amount of champions on the board at one time, and other people say a time bank is the best option. So there is a lot of ideas out there, and from what I understand from previous Q&As with Geddon, it's definitely something he is considering. So if you are a new player and you are struggling for time, what I'd say is just carry on doing what you're doing. I know it can be a bit frustrating when you run out of time, but if you play created games, I think you can up the timer, can't you?
Oh yeah, you can up the time to, I think, 2 minutes 40 seconds per turn.
So if you are really struggling and you're a new player, you're trying to read all the abilities and understand what everything does, perhaps hold off from playing ranked games right now and play some of those casual games. They're not training grounds, you can use your own deck, but it does give you a chance to increase the time. It gives you a little bit more time to read the cards. That's probably a good tip for any new players playing ranked that are, really struggling for time.
Yeah, I'd actually advise them just to throw themselves into ranked and keep losing. They'll improve extremely quickly.
That is true.
Actually, that's how I kind of started out. After I played single player for a while, I just went head on into ranked PvP, and it's that's where, when you have that time limit in there, that starts actually you get the adrenaline going, that speeds up your mental processing. So it's part of the dynamic of the game. It may, sure, the dynamic may need a little tweak here and there, but that's one of the aspects of specifically ranked play, because we have these other options of training grounds and created games. And you can earn money through created games. It may not be the same amount as you would ranked, but you do earn something.
Yep. Okay, so we're running low on time. If we could keep this under 2 hours for the YouTube upload. So we've got a couple of questions left. From Campbell, could you tell us if the campaigns will be getting an update? Apparently there are a bunch of campaigns that have been either outdated or broken for some time.
That's one of the things. It's on our radar. We want to do it. It's just a matter of time and manpower, because a lot of it relates to how the campaign designer software or the current tools for making campaigns, how they work. and how fast it is to make changes, because there are so many dependencies on the map, on what's in play, that is just like it isn't a simple fix of, hey, this thing isn't activating, or the trigger isn't working. It's not as simple as going in and saying, oh, that's why, and fixing it. There are a lot more interdependencies, and to update some of that stuff, sometimes it takes as long to update the campaign so it's working properly as it is to make a new one.
Yeah.
So
I think Geddon also said some of the, especially some of the older campaigns, had stuff like maps, etc., hard coded into them, as opposed to, you know, being able to just change the map based on a map that's currently, you know, in format. So I think,
yeah, and actually that plays into some of the reasons why updating the map arrangements for balance reasons has been slow, because the maps also, it's just like, we need to then like split the maps, have, okay, this is a single player map and here's the multiplayer map, and then do the updates for the multiplayer map. So it's just like everything that seems like it would be fast and easy isn't, because there are all these legacy interdependencies that is just like, at the time it was fine because there weren't like a ton of campaigns or a ton of maps, but because things have progressed the way that they have, it's become an issue.
Yep, cool. Still lots of chat about the timer. I'm sure that's something that will now be made into a thread on the forums where we can get some more discussion. That would be pretty cool. Because I'm sure Geddon's definitely aware of it. Obviously, they've got a few other priorities before that's going to come to fruition. I would imagine, you know, at the very earliest that's even going to be a possibility is the expansion, you know.
Here's a tip for the newer players, or even the weaker players with the timer. Usually when I play against weaker players, they'll just start playing as soon as their turn starts. What you want to do is maybe take aside the first 45 seconds. Oh, take aside the first minute if you need to. And just plan out your turn, make sure everything's ready, then start moving the pieces.
That's actually a very good point, because early on, it's just like you can look at what you have currently in your rune dock and assess, okay, how do you want to go for the next few turns, because then you have the other turns coming up to adjust your strategy. So yeah, that's a very good point.
Okay, yeah, just to quickly expand on that, one tip I would also give to new players is, rather than planning on your turn when you're taking your turn, try to plan on their turn while they're still taking their turn. Especially as some players will take their turn and then leave the timer running for 30 seconds. If you don't start thinking about your turn until your turn, you could be missing out on 30 seconds worth of thinking time, you know?
Yeah.
So always try to plan your moves in advance if possible, you know?
And that's where the chess aspect comes in, is in chess you're always like 5 moves ahead, or you're thinking 5 moves ahead.
So plan in ahead. I'm pretty sure that Devil's Wrath, who many will consider to be one of the top 2 or 3 players to have ever played Pox, he plans his turns at least 3 turns in advance, from what I understand. So it definitely is a viable strategy to plan your turns in advance, at least even to give yourself a rough idea of what you want to be doing in 3 turns time. If you say, okay, well, I want to go for that font, you know, and in 3 turns I'm going to have killed X, Y, and Z champion on the map, it can make your thinking a little less of a struggle on your turns.
And also your deck composition can make a difference. Starting out, you might want to go with more like direct damage mechanics, rather than the high-level combos, because you may not have as much of a chance to win, but it gives you, it makes it faster and allows you to learn the game better.
Okay, we did have a good point from Anima as well. It's something that I have always wanted to be introduced on Pox. It's something really simple. In the PoxNora chat, on the lobbies, guild forums, etc., can we get timestamps on messages? Just so we know when someone posted a message.
On the forums?
No, not on the forums. On the client.
In-game. Okay. Oh, yeah, the timestamps. It's possible. It's one of those things that it's the time commitment to do it, because doing something like that, it does take time to put it in, and you also have to make sure it doesn't break something, which that is a major contributing factor of why things are done or aren't done. But yeah, the timestamps, I personally have always liked the timestamps, but it's a team decision on, is this a priority and is this really needed? Because if the majority of the community thinks that, hey, this would be a good feature, then it would be more considered than, it's like, okay, this small minority of players who are active in like chat use this, but the broader community doesn't even really care. And it also gets into the discussion of, okay, then do we have an option to disable the timestamps if people don't want them because it takes up space? And if we give them the option of disabling them, is it worth putting them in the first place?
Yeah.
So yeah, it gets
it's like the whole clickable links and things like that. Sure, those are nice things, but they are quite small things. So hopefully we'll get them in the future, though. Okay, we got time for the one last question. We did actually have Agurgus spoil one of our last questions by asking it earlier in the stream. So we'll move straight to Chickenpox's question. And it's the last question we got. So, when can we expect new redesigned maps? And do you have a preview for us?
Oh, new redesign maps.
I think a lot of people loved the a few of the ones, like the new FW map, the new KF map. They were pretty cool. Yeah,
Liquid really sunk a lot of time into getting those up and running for the Steam release. And we have a brand new map for the expansion using the new visual styles. But we don't want to reveal any more details from that, but it's just like there is at least something in that vein coming. It's just a matter of when, and we may or may not be able to get to updating existing maps. But it's also we're also updating the existing maps in terms of like their layout for balance and play reasons. So it's just like, okay, do we want to update the new map or old maps visually just to have to make more changes because they need like huge balance improvements to them? So it's likely that the balance changes to maps will happen before like the brand new art for existing maps happen. But it's just a matter of when we're able to actually work on them and get them done and get them into a game and not break something.
Yeah. We're pretty much out of time now. Because I want to keep this under 2 hours so I can upload it to one video on YouTube. But that is awesome to hear there's going to be a brand new map for the expansion. and I really hope that we're going to get a preview of that soon.
Well, soon is relative. When we get into the actual build up to the expansion, we'll probably reveal teasers in the weeks building up to it. But all the stuff, the artists want people to just get a taste of it. They don't want to know everything about it, because there is something fun about discovering the map. Actually jumping into ranked PvP and ending up with it on your queue and go, oh wow, this is the new map. That's cool. So there'll probably be teasers in the lead up, but there probably won't be a full reveal of the map.
Cool. That's cool. So right, like I say, we're pretty much out of time now. For anyone that sat through the whole thing, you're awesome. And hopefully,
yes, we are.
With the answers. Hopefully, we've all learnt something. I had some pretty informative stuff come out. Certainly, I think we've all learnt a few things. So, is there anything else you wanted to add while we're on air?
Well, actually, in terms of chat, there was something brought up when I was talking about the public decks, about not having them be split faction. And the public decks, we want to keep, we want them to be help new people learn to play the game, but not make it too complicated. And split factions, trying to balance that, it gets real complicated. And these are static decks. You can't edit them. You can't change them. And they're also intended to be a guide for new players on, okay, here's an idea on how you can build a deck. Now, come up with your own variation of it moving forward.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Do you think, as one last really quick question, do you think there should be more decks available in the marketplace?
In the marketplace? For the marketplace, I would say no. For the public decks that are just only inside the game client, we're looking into maybe expanding out on the number of decks. But for what's actually on the marketplace, because we don't want the decks to be high meta, where you just buy the deck and then you're able to just go straight into PvP and rise to the top of the ranks. We want it to be, okay, this can help get you started, but especially with the changes that we've made to make it a lot easier to get runes and craft runes, the need for purchasable pre-made decks has become less of a necessity.
Yeah.
But we definitely see the reason why some people would want more, and why maybe some of these should be updated, because with balance changes and stuff, sometimes the deck mechanics don't quite work anymore. And we do want competent decks if people are spending money or gold on a pre-made deck.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we're really out of time now. But thanks for anyone that's watched the whole thing. And yeah, thumbs up. We'll try and drag Gedden away from his massive haul of coding for the next one.
And I hope all the doomsayers out there were at least somewhat got some information out of this.
Yeah.
I may not be able to speak as freely as Gedden, since he is the CEO of the company, but hopefully this was informative to everyone in some way.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for sitting through to it. For anyone that missed any of of the interview. We will be posting it on YouTube ASAP.